The emergency school board meeting was held on a Friday afternoon, 3 weeks after Marcus had presented his evidence to Mrs. Peterson. The small conference room was packed with parents, teachers, school administrators, and 2 police detectives who had been investigating the financial fraud allegations against David Chun's companies. Tyler sat between his parents, looking smaller than Marcus had ever seen him. His father, David Chun, wore an expensive suit and maintained the confident demeanor of a successful businessman, but Marcus could see the worry lines around his eyes. Tyler's mother, Linda Chun, looked nervous and kept glancing at her husband for reassurance. Marcus sat with his mother Sarah on the opposite side of the room. She had taken time off work to be there, something that would cost her nearly a day's pay, but she was proud of her son for standing up for what was right. Next to them sat Jennifer, David, Maria, and 6 other students who had agreed to testify about Tyler's bullying behavior. Dr. Harrison, the school superintendent, called the meeting to order. We're here today to address serious allegations of ongoing bullying behavior and to discuss new information that has come to our attention regarding related activities outside of school. Marcus was called to present his evidence first. He had spent weeks organizing everything into a clear, professional presentation that would be easy for everyone to understand. Using his laptop, which he had finally managed to repair, he projected his findings onto the conference room screen. Over the past 2 months, I documented 43 separate incidents of bullying behavior by Tyler Chun and his associated group. Marcus began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. These incidents involved physical intimidation, destruction of personal property, verbal harassment, and cyberbullying through social media platforms. As Marcus clicked through screenshots and video evidence, the room grew increasingly quiet. The documentation was thorough and damning. Tyler's cruel comments, his destruction of other students' belongings, and his pattern of targeting vulnerable classmates were all clearly displayed. But during my research into Tyler's background, Marcus continued, I discovered information that suggested a possible connection between his bullying behavior and his family's business practices. David Chun stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You're going to let a troubled teenager make accusations against my family's legitimate business based on internet gossip? Mr. Chun, please sit down, Dr. Harrison said firmly. Marcus, please continue. Marcus pulled up the business investigation portion of his presentation. Chun Digital Solutions and its 3 subsidiary companies have been the subject of multiple complaints alleging fraudulent billing practices, delivery of substandard services, and possible cyber attacks against competitor websites. Detective Rodriguez, who had been investigating the financial crimes, nodded as Marcus spoke. The young man's research actually helped us identify several patterns we had missed in our own investigation. His documentation was extremely thorough and professionally compiled. Tyler's father had gone pale. The expensive lawyers he'd hired had advised him that the police investigation was just routine questioning, but seeing Marcus's comprehensive evidence laid out in front of the school board made him realize how serious the situation had become. Marcus continued his presentation, showing how Tyler's sense of entitlement and his belief that his family's wealth made him untouchable had created a pattern of abusive behavior that mirrored what his father was allegedly doing to small business owners. Tyler believed he could treat other students however he wanted because his family had money and influence. Marcus explained, but wealth built on illegal activities isn't real power, it's just delayed consequences. When Marcus finished his presentation, several of Tyler's victims were invited to share their experiences. Jennifer spoke about how Tyler had humiliated her in front of the entire cafeteria, causing her to develop severe anxiety about attending school. David described being pushed down the stairs and then threatened when he considered reporting the incident. Maria talked about Tyler's attempts to sabotage her academic achievements because he couldn't stand being outperformed by someone he considered beneath him. The testimony was emotionally difficult to hear, but it painted a clear picture of systematic abuse that had gone unchecked for too long. Tyler was finally given a chance to speak in his own defense, but his response only made things worse. Instead of showing remorse or taking responsibility, He blamed his victims for being too sensitive and insisted that everything he'd done was just joking around. "These people are just jealous because my family is successful," Tyler said, his voice full of the same arrogance that had made him so many enemies. "Marcus is just a loser who couldn't handle a little teasing, so he made up all these lies to get revenge." Dr. Harrison looked at Tyler with disappointment. "Mr. Chun, we have video evidence of your actions. This isn't a matter of interpretation or sensitivity. Your behavior has been documented and corroborated by multiple witnesses." The school board deliberated for less than 30 minutes before announcing their decision. Tyler was immediately suspended pending a full investigation and would likely face expulsion. All of his friends who had participated in the bullying would face similar consequences. The school would also be implementing new anti-bullying policies and providing counseling resources for all affected students. But the consequences extended far beyond the school. Detective Rodriguez announced that David Chun and 2 of his business partners had been arrested earlier that morning on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and computer tampering. The investigation into their companies had revealed a sophisticated scheme to defraud small business owners of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Tyler's mother broke down in tears as the reality of their situation hit her. The expensive house, the luxury cars, the private vacations, everything they had built their lifestyle around was about to disappear. More importantly, her son had learned to model the same unethical behavior that had finally caught up with his father. As the meeting concluded, Marcus felt a complex mix of emotions. He was relieved that Tyler would no longer be able to hurt other students, but he took no joy in seeing a family destroyed, even one that had caused so much pain to others. Outside the conference room, several parents approached Marcus to thank him for his courage. Many admitted they had known their children were being bullied, but felt helpless to stop it because Tyler's family had so much influence in the community. "You gave our kids their voices back," one mother told Marcus with tears in her eyes. "They were so afraid to speak up before, but seeing you stand up for what's right showed them they don't have to suffer in silence." Over the following weeks, the story spread throughout the community and eventually gained national attention. News outlets picked up the story of the quiet teenager who had used his computer skills to expose both a school bullying ring and a major financial fraud scheme. Marcus received interview requests from journalists, college recruiters, and even technology companies interested in his investigative techniques. But Marcus was most proud of the changes he saw at school. Without Tyler's reign of terror, the social atmosphere improved dramatically. Students who had been afraid to eat lunch alone now found friends among other former outcasts. The programming club that Marcus had started grew from 3 members to 25. Most importantly, several students came forward to report other bullying situations, knowing they would be taken seriously and supported. Tyler, meanwhile, was transferred to a different school district after his expulsion was finalized. His father was eventually sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to pay full restitution to all defrauded customers. The family lost their house, their cars, and their social standing in the community. Marcus learned later that Tyler was attending therapy and had written letters of apology to all of his victims. Whether this represented genuine change or just another attempt to manipulate the situation remained to be seen, but Marcus hoped Tyler would eventually learn from his mistakes and become a better person. As for Marcus himself, his life changed in ways he never could have imagined. His story inspired other students across the country to stand up against bullying and use their skills to seek justice. He received a full scholarship to study computer science at MIT, with several professors specifically mentioning his investigative work as evidence of his potential. More importantly, Marcus had discovered his purpose. He decided to focus his future career on using technology to help vulnerable people and expose those who abuse their power. He had learned that being quiet and invisible wasn't his weakness. It was actually his greatest strength, allowing him to observe, document, and build cases against those who thought they were untouchable. On graduation day, as Marcus walked across the stage to receive his diploma, he looked out at the audience and saw Jennifer, David, Maria, and the other students he had helped find their voices. They were all smiling and cheering, no longer the frightened, isolated kids they had been when Tyler ruled the school through fear. Marcus realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting back at your enemies. It's about making sure they can never hurt anyone else again. Tyler Chun had indeed picked the wrong kid to bully, but Marcus spent the entire weekend in his bedroom, surrounded by computer equipment he'd been collecting and repairing for years. His broken laptop lay in pieces on his desk, but he wasn't trying to fix it anymore. Instead, he was building something much more sophisticated from the spare parts and old computers he'd saved up over time. His mother, Sarah, knocked softly on his door Sunday evening. "Marcus, honey, you've barely eaten anything all weekend." "What's going on?" "Just working on a project, Mom," Marcus called back, not wanting to worry her about the bullying incident. She had enough stress trying to keep their family afloat without knowing her son was being tormented at school. But Marcus wasn't just working on any project. He was creating a comprehensive digital investigation system that would expose Tyler Chun and his family's business practices. During his research into Tyler's background, Marcus had discovered something interesting. Tyler's father, David Chun, owned several tech companies that claimed to help small businesses with their online presence. However, Marcus had found numerous complaints online from business owners who said Chun's companies had overcharged them and delivered poor results. Marcus had a gift that most people didn't know about. While other students saw him as just a quiet nerd, he had actually been programming since he was 12 years old. He taught himself multiple programming languages, database management, and even some basic cybersecurity techniques. His dream was to use these skills to create something meaningful. Maybe even start his own company someday. Now, he was going to use these skills for justice. Over the next few weeks at school, Tyler continued his bullying, but something had changed. Marcus no longer reacted with fear. Instead, he watched Tyler carefully, taking mental notes of everything he said and did. Tyler bragged constantly about his father's success, his expensive clothes, and the family's upcoming vacation to Europe. He had no idea that every word was being cataloged by someone who was building a case against him. Marcus also started paying attention to Tyler's other victims. There was Jennifer, a freshman girl Tyler had humiliated for wearing the same dress twice in 1 week. There was David, a sophomore who Tyler had pushed down the stairs, claiming it was an accident. And there was Maria, a quiet girl from Marcus's programming class who Tyler had targeted because she had beaten him on a math test during lunch periods. Marcus began approaching these students one by one. He was careful and gentle, understanding their fear and embarrassment. Many of them had never told anyone about what Tyler had done to them. "I know what Tyler did to you," Marcus told Jennifer one day after seeing her eating alone in the library. "And I know you probably don't want to talk about it. But I want you to know that you're not alone, and it's not your fault." Jennifer looked up with surprise, her eyes filling with tears. "You saw what happened?" "I saw it, and I recorded it," Marcus said quietly. "Tyler doesn't know, but I've been documenting everything he does to people. Would you be willing to tell me your story? I'm working on something that might help all of us." Word began to spread quietly among Tyler's victims that Marcus was collecting evidence. Students who had suffered in silence for months started reaching out to him, sharing their experiences and, in some cases, providing their own photos and videos of Tyler's behavior. Marcus compiled everything into a detailed digital dossier. Screenshots of Tyler's cruel social media posts, videos of his bullying incidents, testimonies from victims, and even some financial information about his father's questionable business practices that Marcus had legally obtained through public records. Searches. But Marcus's real breakthrough came when he discovered that Tyler's father's companies were involved in something much more serious than just overcharging customers. Through his research, Marcus found evidence that David Chun's businesses were using misleading advertising and possibly fraudulent billing practices. Some customers had been charged for services they never received, while others had their websites deliberately sabotaged after they complained about poor service. Marcus realized he had stumbled onto something that went far beyond high school bullying. Tyler's family wealth, which had made him feel so superior to everyone else, was potentially built on illegal business practices. The turning point came on a Wednesday afternoon when Tyler decided to escalate his harassment. Marcus was walking to his programming class when Tyler and his friends cornered him in an empty hallway. "I've been thinking about our little conversation at the fountain," Tyler said with a nasty smile, "and I've decided I don't care about your stupid video. Nobody's going to believe a loser like you anyway." Tyler shoved Marcus against the lockers harder than he'd ever done before. "In fact, I think it's time everyone learned their place around here. Starting with you?" Tyler pulled out his own phone and started recording. "Say hello to everyone, Marcus. Tell them what a pathetic freak you are. Tell them how your mom's a cleaning lady and you'll never amount to anything." Marcus looked directly into Tyler's camera with calm confidence that surprised everyone, including himself. "Actually, Tyler, I have something much more interesting to share." Marcus pulled out his own phone and opened an app he'd been working on for weeks. With a few taps, he activated a program that would change everything. "You see, while you've been wasting time being a bully, I've been busy learning about you and your family," Marcus said clearly. "Did you know your father's company, Chun Digital Solutions, has been reported to the Better Business Bureau 17 times in the past 2 years? Or that 3 of his clients have filed complaints with the State Attorney General's office for fraudulent billing?" Tyler's face went white. "You're lying. You don't know anything about my father's business." "I know a lot more than you think," Marcus continued, still speaking directly to Tyler's camera. "I also know about the fake positive reviews your dad's companies post about themselves online, and the way they deliberately damage competitors' websites using malicious code." Tyler stopped recording and grabbed for Marcus's phone, but Marcus was ready. He stepped back and kept talking, now addressing the small crowd of students who had gathered to watch what they thought would be another humiliation session. "But the most interesting thing I discovered," Marcus said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "is that Tyler here likes to brag about being rich, but his family's wealth comes from stealing from small business owners who trusted them to help grow their companies." "Shut up!" Tyler screamed, lunging at Marcus. But this time, Marcus didn't back down. He sidestepped Tyler's charge, causing the bigger boy to crash into the lockers. "The truth is," Marcus continued, "Tyler's not just a bully. He's the son of a criminal, and he's been using Daddy's dirty money to buy his way into popularity." By now, several teachers had arrived to break up what they thought was a fight. But instead of finding Marcus cowering from Tyler's attacks, they found Marcus calmly explaining the situation while Tyler raged helplessly. Mrs. Peterson, the vice principal, took both boys to the office. Tyler kept insisting that Marcus was lying and making everything up. But Marcus was prepared for this too. "Mrs. Peterson, I have documentation for everything I've said," Marcus explained. Pulling out a tablet computer, he dissembled himself. "Screenshots, public records, recorded testimonies from other students Tyler has bullied, and evidence of illegal business practices by Tyler's father's companies." Mrs. Peterson examined the evidence with growing concern. She had dealt with bullying cases before, but this was something entirely different. Marcus had built what essentially amounted to a legal case against Tyler and his family. "Where did you get all of this information, Marcus?" she asked. "Most of it is from public records and social media posts," Marcus explained. "I use the same research techniques that journalists and private investigators use. I made sure everything I collected was obtained legally." Tyler sat in stunned silence as he watched his carefully constructed social hierarchy crumble around him. For the first time in his life, he couldn't buy, intimidate, or charm his way out of a situation. Mrs. Peterson made several phone calls that afternoon. The school district's legal department wanted to review Marcus's evidence. The local police were contacted about the potential financial crimes, and Tyler's parents were summoned for an emergency meeting. As news of what had happened spread through the school, students began looking at both Tyler and Marcus very differently. Tyler, who had ruled through fear and his family's money, suddenly found himself isolated and under suspicion. Marcus, who had been invisible for so long, was now seen as someone who had stood up not just for himself, but for all of Tyler's victims, but Marcus knew this was just the beginning. Tyler's father would likely bring expensive lawyers and try to intimidate anyone who challenged him. The real battle was about to begin, and Marcus was prepared to see it through to the end. That evening, as Marcus worked on strengthening his digital evidence and preparing for what was to come, he received dozens of messages from classmates thanking him for his courage. Some shared their own stories of being bullied by Tyler or his friends. Others offered to help in any way they could. For the first time since starting high school, Marcus felt like he belonged somewhere. He had found his purpose and his power, not in trying to fit in or fight back. Marcus Williams sat alone at the corner table in Lincoln High School's cafeteria, his lunch tray barely touched as he watched other students laugh and chat with their friends. At 17, he was shorter than most boys his age, with thick glasses that constantly slipped down his nose and clothes that never quite fit right. His mother worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat after his father left 3 years ago, which meant shopping for new clothes wasn't a priority. The cafeteria buzzed with typical teenage energy. But Marcus had learned to make himself invisible. He pulled out his worn notebook and continued working on coding exercises, finding comfort in the logical world of programming where everything made sense and bullies didn't exist. His fingers moved quickly across the page as he sketched out algorithms, completely absorbed in his work. "Look what we have here," came a familiar voice that made Marcus's stomach drop. Tyler Chun and his crew of 3 friends approached the table with predatory grins. Tyler was everything Marcus wasn't: tall, athletic, popular, and cruel. His father owned several tech companies in the city, making Tyler feel entitled to treat others however he pleased. "Still playing with your little computer games, loser?" Tyler grabbed Marcus's notebook and held it high above his head. "What is this garbage? Are you trying to hack into the girls' locker room or something?" Marcus stood up slowly, his heart pounding. "Please give that back. I need it for my programming class." "Programming class?" Tyler's friend Jake laughed loudly. "You mean nerd class? No wonder you're such a freak." The entire cafeteria had gone quiet now, with dozens of students pulling out their phones to record what was happening. Marcus could see the familiar look of entertainment on their faces. Another day, another show at the weird kid's expense. "Maybe we should help him with his social skills," Tyler said, ripping several pages from the notebook. "Rule number 1, don't be a pathetic loser who sits alone every day." Marcus felt tears stinging his eyes as he watched weeks of work flutter to the ground. Those pages contained his ideas for a mobile app he'd been developing, something that could actually change his family's financial situation. Now they were scattered across the dirty cafeteria floor. "Rule number 2, Tyler continued, grabbing Marcus's backpack and dumping its contents. "Don't dress like you shop at the garbage dump." Books, papers, and Marcus's old laptop crashed to the floor. Several students gasped when they heard the sickening crack of the laptop's screen breaking. That laptop was Marcus's most precious possession, a refurbished machine his mother had saved for months to buy him for his birthday. "Oops," Tyler said with mock concern. "Looks like your little toy is broken. Maybe Mommy can buy you a new one with all that money she makes cleaning offices." Something snapped inside Marcus at the mention of his mother. She worked herself to exhaustion to provide for them, often coming home with her hands raw from cleaning supplies and her back aching from long hours. She didn't deserve to be mocked for her sacrifice. "Don't talk about my mother," Marcus said quietly, his voice trembling with emotion. "What did you say?" Tyler stepped closer, towering over Marcus. "Are you actually trying to stand up to me? That's hilarious." The circle of students tightened around them, phones still recording. Marcus could hear whispered comments and cruel laughter. This was exactly the kind of content that would be shared across social media within minutes, turning his humiliation viral. "I said don't talk about my mother," Marcus repeated, louder this time. His hands were shaking, but he maintained eye contact with Tyler. Tyler's expression darkened. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone he considered beneath him. In his world, social hierarchy was everything, and Marcus was supposed to know his place at the bottom. "You know what? I think you need to learn some respect," Tyler said, shoving Marcus backward. "Maybe a little swim will cool you down." Before Marcus could react, Tyler and his friends grabbed him and started dragging him toward the cafeteria's outdoor entrance. Marcus struggled, but he was no match for four athletic teenagers who had clearly done this before. "Stop! Let me go!" Marcus shouted, but his pleas only seemed to encourage them. Other students followed, excited to see what would happen next. A few looked uncomfortable, but none stepped forward to help. They dragged Marcus outside to the courtyard where a large, decorative fountain sat in the center. The water was murky and filled with algae. Definitely not something anyone would want to be thrown into. "Maybe this will wash off some of that loser stench," Tyler laughed as they lifted Marcus toward the fountain, but as they prepared to throw him in, Marcus's hand brushed against Tyler's phone, which had fallen partially out of his pocket during the struggle. In a split second of desperation, Marcus grabbed it and held it tight. "Let me go, or I'll throw this in first," Marcus threatened. Holding the expensive device over the water, Tyler's face turned red with anger. "You wouldn't dare, you little freak. Do you know how much that phone costs? More than your mom makes in a month." "Then let me go," Marcus said firmly. For the first time, he felt like he had some control in the situation. "Give me my phone back right now, or I'll make your life even more miserable than it already is," Tyler snarled. "I'll make sure everyone in this school knows what a pathetic waste of space you are." Marcus looked around at the crowd of students watching them. He saw the same faces that had watched him get humiliated countless times before. The same people who had laughed at his clothes, his awkwardness, his loneliness. Something inside him shifted. "You know what, Tyler? I'm tired of your threats," Marcus said, surprised by the strength in his own voice. "I'm tired of being afraid of you." With that, he made a decision that would change everything. Instead of throwing Tyler's phone into the fountain, he did something much smarter. He quickly opened the phone's camera app and started recording. "What are you doing?" Tyler demanded, suddenly looking uncertain. "I'm making sure everyone sees the real Tyler Chun," Marcus said, pointing the camera at Tyler's angry face. "Tell everyone how you and your friends like to pick on kids who can't fight back. Tell them how you destroyed my laptop and my schoolwork. Go ahead, tough guy." Tyler lunged for his phone, but Marcus was ready. He ducked away and kept recording, capturing Tyler's violent reaction on video. The other students, realizing they were also being recorded in their bullying behavior, began backing away nervously. "You're going to regret this," Tyler threatened. But his voice had lost some of its confidence. He was smart enough to know that being caught on video bullying someone could have serious consequences, especially if it went viral. "Maybe," Marcus said, still recording. "But I think you're the one who's going to regret it more." The crowd was starting to disperse as students realized the entertainment was over and they might get in trouble. Tyler and his friends found themselves alone with Marcus, who was no longer the helpless victim they expected. Marcus finally stopped recording and looked Tyler directly in the eyes. "This ends now," he said quietly. "You leave me alone and I won't share this video. But if you or your friends ever bother me again, everyone will see exactly what kind of person you really are." Tyler wanted to argue, to reassert his dominance, but something in Marcus's eyes told him this wasn't a bluff. The dynamic between them had shifted, and they both knew it. "This isn't over," Tyler muttered. But he sounded more like a defeated child than the school's top bully as Tyler and his friends walked away. Marcus knelt down to gather his scattered belongings. His laptop was definitely broken, and his notebook was ruined, but something had changed inside him. He was no longer the helpless kid who would suffer in silence. Walking back into the school, Marcus felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. He had no idea that this confrontation was just the beginning of a much larger story. Tyler Chun was about to discover that he had picked the wrong target, and the consequences would reach far beyond the walls of Lincoln High School that evening. As Marcus sat in his small bedroom trying to repair his damaged laptop, he made another decision. He wouldn't just defend himself. He would find a way to make sure Tyler and others like him could never hurt anyone again. He had skills that Tyler couldn't imagine, and he was about to put them to use in ways that would surprise everyone who thought they knew the quiet kid from the corner table.